Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, or whoever is listening to this small video. This tutorial is dedicated to the people that were attending our trainings for the project Asia. But even if you were not attending the courses and you're interested in fundraising, I think it could be a good opportunity for you to take some tips related to fundraising. So this small video is dedicated to NGOs, youth NGOs especially, and to the people that organize fundraising for NGOs in the youth sector. We are going to talk about 10 tips that could be useful for you to organize your fundraising plan. I hope you enjoy. See you! Well, we have created some recommendations to help you to build your fund development plan. After becoming more familiar with fundraising, it will be easier for you to build your plan in a way that is meeting more and more your needs. But also this will happen step by step. In the meanwhile, here you have 10 steps to follow. First one is to gather information on your past fundraising efforts. We always recommend not to forget what has been done in the past, especially for fundraising and financial management. You can build a chart like the one that you are seeing now on the screen. It goes to 5 years ago. It can include all the sources for funding that the organization has considered during the last 5 years. For example, here we listed private companies that were supporting your activities, events that have been organized by our NGOs to fundraise, membership fees that are paid by the members of the organization, public institutions that were donating or supporting a representation of a correct plan, the activities that we are organizing, funds from the European Union, and so on. You can add everything that has been used. Step number 2. Analyze your past efforts and fundraising strategies. Now that we know what we have been doing in the past, we need to analyze step by step all the elements. For example, we need to ask us some questions like what generates the larger portions of our revenue? Which were the most effective actions that we took for fundraising in the last years? Which sources were most reliable? Where should you devote more time? In which of these activities that were more reliable or were bringing more money? Where can we involve more board members and volunteers? And so on. So the more we think, the more we analyze, the more questions come to our mind. That's also why we suggest you to write down the answers to these questions, because reading and reflecting on them will bring you to other questions and to a deeper analysis. Step number 3. Analyze the reasons that took your NGO to have fundraising history and evaluate the current situation. It's good to compare what took us to take particular decisions and to check if that reason or situation is still valid. What we need to take into consideration are internal factors and external factors. For internal factors, for example, we need to ask ourselves, do we have new opportunities to take advantage of? For example, a special anniversary, for example, a special team celebrating a special year, like the year of volunteering. Maybe there are more funds this year if it's dedicated to the volunteering, so probably there are more funds on this topic, on this field. How much fundraising experiences have our staff members, for example? How much attention do we give to the donor relations? Which kind of communication or relation we establish with our donors? And all these questions are connected with internal factors. Indeed, with external factors, we have to ask ourselves other questions. For example, given the economy over the past year and counting, how will it affect our fundraising? Maybe changes in the policies related to the mission of our NGO, maybe change of the government, maybe there will be sudden and unexpected facts that could affect our work, like, for example, in this period, the crisis related to the migration, and so on. Step number 4. Who's on your fundraising team? We have to ask ourselves who we want on board. Who are these people? Which kind of competencies do they have? How many are they? And we can ask as many questions as you want. The more people we have helping for fundraising, the more money will be raised. and the more donors we will be able to build closer relationship with. You can again build a table like the one that you are watching now that includes who are these people involved in the fundraising team, how many are they, what they can do. In this way we can have an overview on how our team is built. Step number 5, set your goals. Now that we have this background information, we can set some goals. We want to think about 2 different goals for the fundraising plan, the strategic goals and the financial goals. Concerning the strategic goals, for example, we want to create a new website, we want to hire a new person for marketing, and so on. The strategic goals are related to our annual strategy. Indeed, the financial goal, of course, they are related to how much money we want to raise in order to implement our annual strategy. For example, we want to raise 100,000 euro. Step number 6. Decide the activities we want to realize. When you think about which fundraising activities to use, we need to think about it from 3 different perspectives. 1. Getting new funders. 2. Renewing current supporters. And 3. Getting current supporters or donors to increase their support. To do so, we also need to think how are we going to get all this. How on the side of tools to be used and how on the side of relations to be established to get to this achievement. So concerning tools, for example, if you think about new funds, how can we get new funds? What are we going to do to identify new donors, new funders? What has been already done in the past? Is it possible to repeat it? Let's identify the tools to use. Same thing for the renovation of the existing supporters. What are we going to do to convince these donors to stay with us, to renovate their support? And for the increase, same questions. How and which kind of tools can we use in order to motivate these supporters to increase their donations? And here enters the part of relations. For example, for the third one, probably we need to create some individual letters, some personal calls, face-to-face meetings, and so on. But don't forget, for all of them, it's very important to build closer relationship with them, to understand how to get their trust and how to convince them that donating or supporting your organization will be good also for themselves. Consider also other strategies, like for example, welcome kits for the first-time donors, or thank you calls after you receive the donation, or maybe gifts for the first donation, or for increased donation, and so on. Step number 7. Create a timeline for the activities. Once you decide what strategies you are going to implement, you'll need to put them on a timetable. Some things will only happen certain times, for example near festivities, next to Christmas for example. Some others instead will happen all year long. For example, it's the case when you want to organize a fundraising event near Christmas, because during that time it's more possible that people donate money because of the Christmas spirit. Step number 8. Create a summary for each strategy. Once that you have decided which strategies to undertake, you need to create a summary in order to follow them, to have them always on your desk, let's say. So the summary should include the strategy name, the foreseen income, the total cost of the strategy for your organization, and also after that you take the expenses, which is the net income for the strategy, to see if it's convenient or not to implement it. Another important thing that could be interesting for you to note is the other goals that this strategy will meet. For example, donor appreciation, acquisition of new donors, publicity, involving board members in fundraising, and so on. Also, take note of how many staff members and volunteers are needed to carry out the strategy. To understand which are the expenses and the costs of executing the fundraising strategy, you need to create another small table like the one that you see on the screen. This table just should include category of costs, the amount and some notes that could be interesting for you. For example, time staff volunteer dedicated to the strategy, the cost of this time that is dedicated by the volunteers and the staff, external services that maybe you are taking to implement the strategy, printing costs, and so on. Also, it's important that you remember to set up deadlines for the different tasks related to the strategy, and you can use a table like the one that you see here. Step number 9. To have a complete overview, you can now put all your plans together into one chart that shows the fundraising strategies, the financial goals for that strategy, the target donors, the description, when the different tasks have to be accomplished, who is going to do these tasks, and the costs. Your chart should look like the one that you see on the screen. As you can see, from here you can deduct which are total incomes and the total costs. Step number 10. Evaluation of the process. Like all your activities in your organization, also the fund development plan needs to be evaluated in order to understand if you were doing the right things and if you can make some adjustments for the next plan. How can you evaluate? Of course, you will be looking at your financial goals, but not only. You can also look at the number of donors or funders that you have acquired. You can look at the number of donors that you renewed their support compared to the previous year. You can consider the number of contacts with your donors or funders. You can consider the number of the first-time donors who became regular donors. You can also consider the number of responses to your contacts, for example, those that called you back. You can consider how often the donors refer others about your organization, and so on. All these can be used to evaluate your process. That's all for the fundraising plan. We hope that it has been useful for you. If you need to know more or if you need to ask us any clarification, please do it following the information at the end of this video. Thank you for your attention.